This is WBCQ, bringing World's Last Chance Radio to you from Monticello, Maine, USA. Violent crime, political unrest, financial instability. Everything points to an impending crisis, a crisis like no other. Tune in to World's Last Chance Radio to learn how you can spiritually prepare for what lies ahead. WLC Radio, preparing a people for the Saviour's imminent return.
The connections with Disney are pretty unbelievable. You know, you've got Walt Disney and Warner von Braun in close associations, and I didn't know this till recently, but Walt Disney is an honorary member of Operation Deep Freeze because they filmed it. Okay, and as we know, Warner von Braun has written a book about Mars, who the leader of Mars, first name Elon. Okay. Which is very strange.
Someone presented that, I think that's Rob Skiba yesterday, but if you missed it, in 1957 or in the late 50s, he wrote a book called Mission to Mars, and it's about a breakaway civilization that goes to Mars led by a guy named Elon. Okay?
So strange.
This is all scripted, this narrative, years and years in advance.
So Warner von Braun, the Nazi scientist brought over to help build the NASA, the rocket program, he wrote this book. He had associations with Walt Disney. On his tombstone, it had a Bible verse, Psalm 19:1, which talks about the firmament. And
that's all that was on his tombstone.
Right. And it's the only.
The rocket scientist has a psalm about the firmament.
Right. And if you've looked at the Disney logo, okay, you've got the Magic Kingdom, the castle, okay, and then it's got a little firmament that goes over the top. And what's interesting about that is one of the towers sticks through the firmament, okay? And if you know anything about the Bible, you can think of Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel, whose top would reach unto heaven, okay? And then under that you have Walt Disney's signature, which has 3 6s in it. Kind of interesting.
It's all satanic, magical stuff.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about program responses when you talk to folks. Like, people say, well, you just want to feel special, like you've got a special needs information.
Yeah, you want to think that you're smarter than everybody else. Yeah,
this is responses of people back to you.
Yeah. So when you bring up Flat Earth and you bring up, it usually happens several questions down the line. They go, well, you just want to think that you're smarter than all of the other scientists, all of the other teachers. You want to think that you're special. If I would want to think I was special, I wouldn't pick Flat Earth as the topic because you start off as special. So, and you're lucky to get anywhere from there.
You call watching YouTube research?
Yeah, so that's another response. And these come from everybody. Where did you learn that on YouTube? And I say, I challenge you to find anything, true or false, that's not on YouTube. YouTube is a platform that we have access to. It's getting tougher and tougher because they're censoring it and whatnot. But if you want to learn about mathematics, YouTube is the place. Sacred geometry, they won't teach you that in school, but there's great stuff on YouTube. Everything is there. It's just like life. It's just like people. You have to sort out the truth. And people say, well, you got to do the experiment yourself. Well, guess what? Jaron spent weeks and weeks and weeks setting up this experiment with people. He did it and he documented it. Watch it, then go out and figure out how to do it a little more yourself. This stuff is done for us already, where you can use YouTube, and it's a viable source. It has more knowledge on YouTube than all of the universities and libraries combined, pretty much, minus the Vatican.
So are you calling every scientist a liar?
No, they're just the scientists, the teachers, they're the ones that are the most indoctrinated. They're the toughest ones to wake up because they're the ones that took in the textbooks and regurgitated them perfectly. and again and again and again, and their whole life is built around this heliocentric nonsense that they're teaching, and it's really tough for them to see. But this is changing. 3 years ago when we first started doing this, 4 years ago, it was really, really tough, but the hard work has been done. And now when you bring up flat Earth, you don't get moron, idiot, are you crazy, and people belly laughing. You get, I heard something about that. I heard there was a conference. I heard Obama said it 7 times, during his presidency. And the conversation's a lot easier to start.
So what I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
That's when you just walk away. I don't believe in conspiracy theories is saying I don't believe that 2 men would get together and conspire for their own benefit, okay? I think there's very good people in this room, but I believe there are people capable of conspiracies in here, okay? Very easily, because people do it every day on all different levels. You conspire, without telling anybody. That's a conspiracy. So that one is a tough one for me. When people say that, it's kind of one of my litmus tests where I'm not going to really go much farther with that person.
Yeah, totally agree. So, talking about coming out as a flat earther, okay? I think there's a lot more flat earthers out there than would admit, for sure, because there's an element of fear in coming out, fear of public ridicule, things like that. But like you talked about, most of the hard work, the hard part's over. And go ahead. Well, go ahead. I was just going to say there are a few ways to get going. It's probably necessary to start slow as opposed to just jump off.
Right. So there's all different levels of activism. People say I could never make videos. I could never get in front of a crowd and talk to people. So here I am. I don't know how that happened, but people say I'm afraid to tell anybody. I'm afraid to tell my spouse. You can just start off if you make an effort just to do something. You can do it passively. There's a guy I met yesterday in an elevator. He's called the Ghost, not the elevator, on the way to the restaurant. What's he call himself? Say it again.
Flat ghosting.
Flat ghosting, yeah. He's got a little speaker, and he takes a clip of our podcast or one of my interviews or something, and he hides it in an elevator that doesn't have music. So when everyone gets in the elevator, they're all listening to flat Earth stuff. So, but he's anonymous, so he doesn't do it. You can take cards, business cards, and stick them in places. Leave them in a check, just put them on bulletin boards, put them on a car window, just something. And people are getting this hit. We've actually brought stuff for anyone that wants to do that. It's a good way to warm yourself up to actually start the conversation and start doing things. When you talk to somebody, you hand them a card, and then they'll start asking you questions, and then you got something.
Yeah, and probably the easiest way to find Dave is just follow the path of propaganda, right? Like, find one here, little Easter eggs, and then you'll find Dave.
How many people found a flat Earth card in their door slot today, where they put their key card? Because we did lots of them. But I try not to do flat Earthers. I try to get other people in the hotel. So
that's good because nobody raised their hand.
It's a lot of fun.
So you mentioned, kind of being anonymous, dealing with strangers, which is a good way to start.
Yeah, if you don't want to, if you're afraid about your friends and family, go to somewhere where you don't know people. If you're in the city, away from home, hand out some cards. Hey, did you know the Earth is flat? See what happens. You can just walk away, and it gets easier and easier and more fun when you meet somebody that says, I saw something, and you have that conversation. It's really fun. My girlfriend Paige, we were at a music festival, and they started chemtrail in the sky so bad, and I actually went to the car, got my cards. I have chemtrail cards. And I started handing them out, and then she took some and started a conversation. I finished talking to this group I was talking to, and I find her. She transitioned from chemtrails to flat Earth. She had a whole circle of people around her, and she had a great time. It was good. But then there was this one 30-something-year-old blonde girl, NASA-loving troll, who just could not deal. But you do your best, and this girl's saying, don't listen to them, they're crazy, and they really try to get in there, but you just do the best that you can. Not every conversation goes well, but the ones that do encourage you to do more.
So, we talked about strangers and things like that, but the hard part really is friends and family, people that are close to you, people who you care about what their reaction is going to be, right? And the reason why strangers and things like that are easier is because you don't care, right? Like, could be the last time you talk to someone. And so I think there also has to be an element of that. You have to decide that with your friends and family that the truth is more important than that relationship, and be willing to let that relationship go maybe for a while before they can come back. Go ahead.
So last Thanksgiving, I made this book. Many of you have seen it. It's 100 pages of really good flat Earth memes, just showing you things on the sun and sunset and flight paths and everything. And it's a coffee table book, and I left it on my coffee table for Thanksgiving. And my nephews grabbed it first thing, and I didn't say anything. I just let them go through it. And then after dinner, they went through it again, and I leaned over and I said, "Any questions?" And they asked me a couple questions, and I give one answer and I walk away. And at the end of the night, my two nephews, one's out of college, one's just in college, they were walking out and saying goodbye, and he goes, I guess I'm a flat earther. And I didn't even know that was a thing this morning. Okay? And that's it, and then just let it sit, and then they'll usually revert a little bit because they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But once you plant that seed, as you all know, there's no getting rid of it. So all you gotta do is plant that seed, get somebody to watch a short video, or just leave the book somewhere where they're gonna see it. And this book, by the way, it's too expensive to buy, but you're welcome to buy it. But it's free. There's a PDF of it on theflatearthpodcast.com under what's it under? FE artwork. Put it on your iPad, and you can just whiz through it on your iPad. When you're talking to somebody, you got 100, it covers, there's a meme for everything you could possibly talk about. Or you can email it to them and see what happens.
Planting a seed is a good way to start because it takes the pressure off you. You're not.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I don't feel like I need to convince everyone about flat Earth. I feel like my job is to kind of put stuff out there and allow them, if they care enough about the nature of their reality, which I think is a big deal, to go and research for themselves. But getting into actual conversation with, say, friends and family. So probably number one is not to just bulldoze them, right?
Yeah, just start with a soft question. Ask them what's their number one proof, and they're going to come back and they're going to go photos. And that's a fun one. You open up to the photos page and you show them this picture. You've all seen this, and you just talk about what's going on in that picture, and you're done. I mean, okay, but not photos. What about?
He said the third one is the real one.
Yeah, that's the way I asked them. Which one of these is real? And they'll pick one, and I'm like, well, they're all from NASA. So that one's real, the other 7 that they gave us are fake. What does that tell you?
That's good.
That they're a liar 7 times over?
So typically this will happen in a situation where maybe there's not enough time to talk about it, maybe like at a concert or something like that.
Right, so if you plant your seeds, you're doing your posts, your tweets, whatever, and you just quietly do it, and then after a while, sometimes after years, people will ask you that question, and it's not at an appropriate time or place. You're in a crowded bar, or you're on your way somewhere. You tell them, you say, I'd love to talk to you about this, but maybe we can grab a cup of tea or coffee together or something, but you don't want to do it where there's only a minute or 2 minutes. You want to make them commit to the time. I always lay down some rules, like, hey, we're gonna have this discussion. All right, I'll take 10 minutes. I'll give you 10 minutes. I'll say, okay. I go, here are the rules. I go, you can ask me a question, but only one, and then I'm going to answer it, and you have to listen to the answer. And then when we're done, we can move on to the next question. Right. And if you set down those ground rules, they can't hit you with the barrage of questions, get frustrated, and say, oh, what does it matter?
Right. And one of the things that I did kind of halfway through this journey is, I was putting stuff out on Facebook and YouTube, and Facebook was the one that usually got me in trouble with my friends because YouTube you can kind of do anonymous for a while until someone randomly finds you and says like, dude, I just saw something on YouTube and I've had a few people at work tell me, hey, I was meeting with one of these developers we were working with, and he said, hey, what's the deal with Matt Long and this flat Earth stuff? And he's like, how'd you know about it? He's like, well, I just saw him on YouTube, and makes for some funny conversations. But me, like, everybody knows, so I'm not hiding. But one of the things I did was I recorded basically my story. Just like a little 15-minute video of a buddy of mine prompting me with some questions, so that if I was out at a concert, someplace loud, and someone's like, dude, tell me about flat Earth, and I can't really go into the whole deal there, but I had a link or a card with a link on it that said, look, I'd love to visit with you about this, watch this video, this is how I got into it, and if you're still interested, we'll talk later. Okay, but usually that's an easy way to not get into turning your friend into a foaming at the mouth, angry person, right? And so
the number one video for me, for someone that wants, somebody that's brand new, they're not going to watch a 45-minute video. You got to give them a 2 or 3 minute video. You got to give them, there's flat Earth in 5 minutes. But my favorite video for somebody that really asks a question is ODD's Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth 21 Questions. We have stacks and stacks of cards over there. If you keep those on you, someone has a conversation with you, you say, turn off the TV tonight, go on YouTube and watch this one video. It's 3 minutes per question, 21 questions approximately, and then you won't ask me so many dumb questions. But anybody that sits down and pays attention to that video from start to finish, there's more than a seed planted. There's branches coming out of their ears, and there's no way to stop it.
Right, and then you can also kind of gauge where they're at in their truth journey, a litmus test, if you will.
Yeah, so I have 2 litmus tests. If they believe we went to the moon, you can't hit them with flat Earth, and if they believe 9/11 was as it was told, you got a really tough job ahead of you.
Right, and you also talk about when someone asks you a question, not allowing them to phrase their question as something that's proven fact.
Right, so what most people do is they go, the Earth can't be flat because it would be light all the time. I'd be able to see England. All the ones I've ever heard, I make them rephrase it. So if someone says, it would be light all the time, therefore the Earth cannot be flat, I make them rephrase it or rephrase it for them and say, how does day and night work on a flat Earth? And then they've opened themselves up for an answer. But if they hit you with it as a fact, they're not going to hear your answer so well.
So what do you deal with when you get program indoctrinated responses back? Like when they start talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and all that.
Let's rephrase the question,
so,
please.
let's say they ask you a question and you give them a response, and they say.
So you give them an answer, and then you get the program stuff that we've all been programmed with by Neil and Bill Nye and what's the other one? Lion Box. I'll see those coming. Half the time I'll say it before they say it, and I'll say, don't say this.
Let's say they bring up Flat Earth Society.
Oh yeah. And if you watch the beginning of the conference, Robbie immediately started with, we're not the Flat Earth Society, nobody here believes it. When someone brings up something from the Flat Earth Society, if I haven't already told them that we have nothing to do with them, is I'll completely say, that stuff is controlled opposition, it's nothing that we believe, no Flat Earther believes that, only people that believe in the ball believe Flat Earthers believe that. Okay, and it's crazy. I wouldn't even look into flat Earth if I thought that's what it was. So you can also point out to people as gently as possible that they're defending something that they don't even know their own model. Ask them how fast the Earth is spinning. Okay, Camber, how fast is the Earth spinning? It's my son. All right, so it's crazy that people.
It's not spinning. That's what he's saying.
It's not spinning, right? He doesn't know because he knows it's not spinning. There you go. And then you take it to the next one. How fast is it orbiting the sun? 66,000 miles an hour. You can't even imagine what that speed is, and that's one of the slower ones compared to what we're told with the rest of the stuff. So you start pointing out to them that they don't know their model. Not only do they not know their model, they don't know our model, right? And
Yeah, so, one of the things I think is important is for you guys to take the pressure off of yourselves, okay? Because you're not going to be able to say the right thing to the wrong person or the wrong thing to the right person. There are people that are going to get it, and then there are people that are going to be Vietnamese. People that are against it. I'm too scared to try it one more time. Against, opposed, yes, okay. And one of the things that I did in my life before I got into Flat Earth was I just decided for myself that I was way more interested in having conversations that mattered, getting to know people, as opposed to talking about surface stuff like fantasy football, things like that. It didn't interest me. I wasn't happy unless I was talking about stuff that mattered. And so even before Flat Earth, I decided that everywhere in my life I was going to be associating with people that knew who I was deep down, so I could get to know who they were deep down. And I found that when I was having conversations at that level with people, I was a much happier person, because I could go from having a conversation with my brother to work to having conversations like that with my coworkers. And so when Flat Earth came around, there was no wall that kept it inside for me. And I also know that I would be extremely unhappy, knowing what a passion it is inside me. I'd be extremely unhappy if I wasn't talking to people about it. And honestly, there's a lot of great people here, and you're going to meet a friend here in 15 minutes that you're going to know better than the people you went to high school with. And I think we can all agree with that, because the type of people here are the type of people that want to hear you, they want to know your story, and they're not, thanks, and they're not going to get scared away by someone talking about human hybrids, right? That's probably a normal conversation around here.
Yeah, another thing, where most of the people in here are advanced as far as understanding that the Earth is not a spinning water ball flying through space, that the Earth is flat, and I know many of the proofs. But as you're waking somebody up, it's easy to give them information. They'll be like, aha, and then they'll leave, and then they'll come back twice as bad as they were when you got them, because they're going to go tell their friends, and their friends are just going to hammer them, and they're not going to have the responses, and they're going to crawl back inside their spinning water ball. So what I tell people, and it never works, is if we have a quality conversation and we get through stuff and they're like, wow, 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 and I go, you need to research for 2 weeks and not tell a single person what you're doing. You need to understand what you're learning before you bring it up, and nobody can do it. They get so excited with this new information and they blurt it out, and then people that are just lost scare them back into the ball.
Yeah, so I think to recap, I think it's important not to just go out and start spewing all the information you have. It's way easier to ask them why they believe in a ball,
right,
and to refute their points.
Right. So get them to ask you the questions, and that's it. Because you might be telling them stuff that they don't care about. That when you're telling them, about airplane routes, they don't care. That wasn't a question. They have the questions that are holding on to the ball. So let them ask you the questions. And here's the other thing: if you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know the answer, but let me find out. I have some other Flat Earth friends that I met at the conference. They know the answers. I'm not sure which video to show you that'll explain it. Let me find it. And this conversation isn't a 5-minute or a 10-minute conversation. It's going to go on for days and weeks to really get somebody there. But once you get them going, and once the train pulls out of the station, it won't stop.
Right. I personally believe that it's easier to worry if your friend is ever going to talk to you again than to worry if you're going to say the right thing and is this the right time. It's so much easier to just, once you start, just go, okay? And honestly, there are so many people in this community now that it's way more rewarding to hang out with or to get married to someone who is starting on that same level, right? I mean, why suffer through trying to convert someone that's only in your life because they started in your life? They still have the opportunity to leave and come back, okay? And I honestly think if you're brave enough to put yourself out there, you're only going to get rewarded for it, because you're going to be someone who's standing up for something you believe in. You're going to be rewarded inside, but I also believe that you're going to be rewarded with people in your life like the people in this room. Because the people in this room and they stand for something, right? And your buddy who lives and dies by the 5 leagues of fantasy football that he plays in. No offense to anybody that does it, but that's their life, right? Their job and all that. They're not interesting. Like they're not improving humanity.
Just knowing, being around, how does everybody feel being here, being around all these great people? It's amazing, right? It's awesome. If you turn around, you don't have to worry about what you're saying or thinking, and the conversations we're having are amazing. Every person I see, it's an incredible conversation. This is, fortunately for us, the fastest and largest growing market on earth ever, no matter what. The target market is every single person from ever. Okay, there's no other target market like that. And I'm big on the billboards. I did the billboard here and the one last year. I wanted this message to get people that didn't know the earth was flat. I said, okay, the conference is a giant meetup and we're preaching to the choir, but we're also learning new information. The media's watching us. It's getting out, but I was like, hey, I can get 85,000 people a week to see something they've never seen before. So the billboard, the thing is about billboards, like if you have a restaurant here in Denver, a billboard in Connecticut or Hawaii or Africa is no good for you, for your restaurant, but there's not a single billboard on the earth plane that's not good for flat earth. It's the largest market, it's growing, it's not gonna shrink, there really is no stopping it. So and Dave, you should be encouraged by that.
Yeah, and Dave touched on something that he's probably the biggest walker in that movement. It's like, if there's something in flat earth that's not there that you think needs to be, go out and do it, right? I mean, Dave thought there needed to be a billboard, so he did a billboard. Dave thought there needed to be an ad, so he did an ad, right?
Yeah. And there's some people that say, I don't like what this person's doing, so do the opposite. Let them do it, because they're going to help some other people that like what they're doing. You do the opposite, you're going to help other people. Matt leads us with the Bible first. He's going to help other people. I don't lead with the Bible, and I'm going to help people that would never listen to Matt.
Right, I totally agree, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't listen to me, right? But the best way to get to someone is to come at it from their point of view, or from their reality, or from their culture. And that's why we need as many people as possible putting stuff out there, because it may not be a video with 5 million views that gets someone. It may be a video with 28 views on some obscure corner of the internet that gets somebody. And that may be a repost from somebody else. So I just think the more people that are out there doing the work, putting stuff out, the better. So we're gonna transition to what we would normally be the speak pipe portion of.
We need to take a break first. Play a little
Mitchell.
Mitchell.
We had Mitchell in here to talk about Dave. Yeah. So what we're gonna do some Q&A. So if you've got questions about maybe how to handle a situation, we'll be happy.
Sure.
We're happy to do it. I'm gonna walk through the crowd. All you gotta do is raise your hand, and I'll come to you. But the rule is minute or less on the question, and the second we think it's one of those questions where the person just talks about themselves for a really long time, and everyone's waiting for like when the question's gonna come. We're gonna delete it and ban you for life. Ban you for life, that's right. Okay, we got first one right here. I'll come to you next. I'm going right here.
In a situation where you've already made the mistake of opening up the conversation the wrong way, and it ends up being a little name calling and saying, what authority do you have to be talking about that? So now the conversation has been damaged, and I'm not talking about strangers you can walk with. I'm talking about your friends, your family, and you got to live with them. So now, do you have any suggestions or ideas how to maybe, where you still create an opening for future, maybe you can get back on track with them?
No, I'll let you start.
That's a tough one.
Sleep in the other room.
What I would do is, when the situation's right, to say, hey, we had this conversation and it started off on the wrong foot. I'd like to restart it. you think, I believe the earth is flat, you think that's crazy, that's fine, and you believe the earth is a ball. Can you give me one reason? This is the best one to go to. Can you give me one proof that you have the earth is a ball? Just one, and then let's talk about it. And then you can take it down that road.
Right, yeah, I think, and I think it's important.
Sometimes it's tough. You could be talking to someone who's just not ready, but you planted it. You planted the seed, and sometimes you just got to give them time.
Yeah, and I think just letting them know that it's important to you, being open about that. We got another one here.
Hi, how you doing? Flat Earth Study. What can we do as flat earthers? Let's say if you're attending a church and they're nonprofit, and you became a flat earther, but you want to spread the word in a nonprofit church, but you can't speak on that on those type of churches. You'll be blacklisted.
You're saying if you speak as an official at the church, you'll be blacklisted and lose your nonprofit status and all that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's plenty of people that have been kicked out of their church for their flat earth beliefs, including these lovely ladies right here in front. I think you have to decide if you're going to be, one, I don't think as a Bible-believing, church-going guy, most of the time, I don't think just fully stepping out of the church is the right answer, because I think you could probably find at least one thing in every church you go into, unrelated to flat earth, that you may not identify with that church. The really tough thing about flat earth for me, when I go to a church and I think that the pastor who's preaching thinks I'm an idiot, right? That's a tough pill to swallow. I think you will start to see more and more smaller churches, internet churches, start to accept this, especially since it aligns with a literal reading of the biblical account, right? And I know you got Dean Odell in Alabama, but you got Pastor Nate Wolf, who got fired because of it. And by the way, they didn't even ask him. They fired him. They didn't even ask him if he believes in flat earth. They just knew he went to a conference that wasn't a flat earth conference, but they taught some flat earth there. So it is a touchy subject right now. And I think for that, you just have to decide, am I going to be happy going there? Is it going to hinder me spiritually? And if it is, I think you need to move on to the next one. If it's not, I think you should continue to be a grassroots effort in your own church. And that's like me. I'm not going up and talking to the pastor, but everyone that knows me in the church knows what I believe in. And so I think one-on-one is better anyways.
I believe on the Must See Bids page of the podcast website, there is a biblical section of really good presentation. So if you can have a conversation with the pastor or whatever and say, hey, will you watch this? This is really interesting. Maybe that'll work.
So I'm like a year into this flat earth, and I'm a Christian first, and I'm fully in. I've shared flat earth with a lot of people, and I'm just wondering, are we distracting from the actual gospel? I think I just turned it off now.
Got it? Live off.
Hello?
Here, I got it. Sorry. All right, now go.
All right, my question is, I'm a Christian first, and I'd rather be known as a warrior for God, not a flat earther first. Are we distracting from the gospel and end times? Because I think the world's a little messed up, and we're probably heading towards end times. And no disrespect to David, but how do you feel? And do you feel like we're potentially causing dissension in the church?
Okay, yeah. I don't think. I think flat Earth, whether it's the church, whether it's out of the church, it's going to cause dissension because, for whatever reason, it is an extremely divisive topic. I think standing up for truth is always a good thing, right? Whether you believe in the Bible or not, truth is good, right? And there is always going to be an evil conspiracy to cover that up and dilute that, okay? And one of the things I always say is, how do you dilute something? Well, you pour it into something bigger, like infinite space, okay? So, again, the pastor of a church, okay, is just one person, okay? He is not as powerful as the congregation. So I believe what we need to be doing is infiltrating the congregation, okay? And unfortunately, in churches, you've got a lot of pastors preaching what he thinks the congregation wants to hear, okay? And if he thinks, just like in anything else, if he thinks that he's going to risk losing something by preaching on something or acknowledging something, I think it's going to happen. But again, I think it's up to us, whether in the church or out of the church. It's up to us to stand up for what we believe is truth. And I personally wouldn't be happy if I didn't feel like I was standing up for it. You can also take a stack of those cards over there and use them as bookmarks in all the Bibles in the church. Okay? Also, we have the trifolds over there. They go in right behind the Bibles. Because when somebody's sitting there in church, there's nothing better than reading a trifold flat earth brochure. Okay? And the cards have rounded corners. People love round things. They put it in their pocket. They take it home. They're getting ready for bed. They take the stuff out. Like, what is this? They flip it on their phone. Then it's on the Apple TV. And then they're flat earthers. Speaking. All right, we got time for a few more questions.
I was just wondering if you guys have had any luck or any advice as far as kind of group dynamics. Sometimes it's hard to get just one person because people walk up and go, "Are you guys talking about flat Earth?" And before you know it, there's like 6 or 7 people. Have you guys had any experience with that? Do you kind of order it and go, "Listen, you, then you, then you"? What's the deal?
Very good. That's where laying down the rules is really important, and it works out well. To say we're going to have this discussion, but we're going to take turns, one question at a time, and you have to listen to my answer. And the questions will come, and the conversation will go really nice, unless you have an obnoxious, balltard. That won't listen. There's certain people that just won't listen. I've had people, we went to the movie premiere there with Mark and a bunch of other people, and afterwards, guy's super nice. He's like, he goes, if the earth is flat, why is it a perfect circle? And I'm like, well, we don't know it's a perfect circle, but essentially it is a circle, and I explained how the sun circles around, melting out this circular pond. And when I was done fully explaining it, seasons and everything, because he was asking about that, he goes, well, why is it a perfect circle? He didn't hear anything I said. So I just realized, and another question came by, same response. People aren't, there's certain people that will ask a question that are not interested in the answer. And you have to realize that there's a big target audience that I had, that we have. Don't waste your time on somebody, that's not a personal friend or family when you could wake up 10 other people and not wake up that person in the same amount of time.
Hey Dave, my name's Chip Bemis. I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I brought my family, all but my college student with me. My daughter Kasai is here, but my question comes from their perspective. We're all adults, we're big boys, big girls, we've been there, done that. We can put on our big boy pants and go out there and have this conversation. But we also all know what it means to be in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, all the way through 12th grade, even in college perhaps. The question is this: some of her friends have already, she brought home to me, hey, when she first learned that her dad was looking into flat earth, yeah, you never know if dad's lost his mind or not, right? Well, it just so happens that one of her classmates brought it up in her science class. You talk about ridiculed, everything that you think we feel and then some. So my question is, what do we do for this up-and-coming generation? Because if we're not touching these guys with flat earth and the truth that's out there, we're missing it. We're missing it entirely, because that's who's going to carry this torch. So it's a huge torch to carry, and there aren't very many of them right now. But now, having said that, there's another young man on my daughter's track team that came up and said, I heard you're looking into flat earth. Flat earth, it's amazing, isn't it? I felt like I was at home, guys. It was great. Because here is this 9th grader talking to me about flat earth, and I said, that's the guy I need to be talking to. He's well respected, he's a leader in his community amongst his peers, and we've got to touch this group here.
Kids are the best to go after because they're willing to learn.
All they have to say is Logan Paul's a flat earther.
That's what I'm saying. That's what Logan Paul's here. 18 million kids follow him, so this will, you don't have to like his videos. Kids like his videos, lots of them, so they're going to hear it.
I think too, as parents, it's kind of our job to be their shield. So my daughter will always have the ability to say, well, this is what my dad told me, you know, or this is what my dad believes. At some point, now I think she's already to that point, but at some point she'll have to say, this is what I believe. And I had a meetup on Sunday, and she was there, and some of the people were coming in, and she was standing there, and they were like, hey, they're like, are you a flat earther? And she was like, yeah. And she's 7, you know, and I was like, whoa, that's awesome, you know. And it just shows like there's just different atmospheres that you're going to be comfortable saying that in.
And again, being in elementary school or junior high or whatever, you want to fit in, but it's just something that we're all going to have to learn to, you know, the kids are going to have to learn to deal with. But the tides are going to turn. In a year from now, I don't know where this is going to be, but they might be laughing at kids that still believe in the ball a year from now. I am.
Hello, I'm Brian, 3-year flat earther, and I want to just say thanks for making an app out there for
the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock app available in the Apple Store. That one?
I think that's a great way
coming to Android soon. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, but yeah, I think that's really important. There's not really apps out there, so keep working on it. And like, how does one get into like app development? Is my question.
Glad I found the guy that you planted in the crowd.
I didn't develop the app. I came up with the idea, and I found an app designer in India. That's why I haven't slept in 2 months, because he gets up when I go to sleep and gets me up. So kind of just, if you really focus on something long enough, it comes into manifestation. So when I first started talking to him, I had no idea exactly what the app was going to be like, but then it grew, and there's changes coming to it. We're actually adding suggested video. This app is meant to wake people up. So you have it, in the corner it'll be suggested video. Let's say somebody comes up with a great video, and boom, suggested video. You click it, app flips over, you're on YouTube, it plays that video for you, it goes back to the app. So it'll be a great way to show friends and go, oh, look at this new video, let's watch it together. Bam, bam, flat earth. That's what it looks like. Next question. You got a question?
No, I was just waving to the camera.
Who's got a question?
So I go to a community college, and it's hard to start conversations with people, but it's once you get into a conversation, there's so many things to talk about. So do you have any tips for starting? Because it's a really diverse college, and it's so there's a lot of people, a lot of opportunities there, but starting conversations. So any tips about starting conversations with a diverse group of people?
So when you bring up the conversation, I also don't like to say anything as absolute fact. I like asking questions. Like, you ever wonder, how we could travel so many million miles? Know the number of miles that the Earth travels in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, and that the stars never change. Plant the question and walk away. And you can talk about, that they could see across Lake Michigan, or and there should be thousands of feet of curvature. We're all seeing farther than we can every day. We don't even realize it. I live on the coast in Connecticut, and I can see not only underneath the Whitestone Bridge, but I can see on a clear day, on a calm day, I can see the footings that the stanchions are on that are right above the water. And when I zoom in with my camera, I should be able to see the top of the stanchions, which are 160 feet, I forget what they are, but there should be over 200 feet of curvature, and I can see below the bridge. But you show that to somebody that believes that we live in a ball, they're like, well, there's flat spots on the world, and but you show it to them, you show them the math, you walk away. These seeds will take.
All right, last question right here, Dave.
Hey there, great presentation. There's a lot of people that feel they're very educated in the field of science and things like that, physics, and it's hard getting past things like, the rockets take off in a hump because they're entering an orbit, and then they go into the orbit, and now they're a part of it, all of it going down and stuff like that. How do you sort of get into those discussions without being able to prove necessarily, but also trying to open their mind to, getting into that?
My answer to that is there's so many videos that if you watch any NASA, SpaceX launch, usually with less than 60 seconds, sometimes less than 10 seconds, it switches to a cartoon. I mean, a ridiculous cartoon. So there's videos on my channel, on all the channels, Jaredism. Watch these launch videos and say, oh, you think so? Why can't they film that? How come it's never filmed from space? How come, if it's going out over Africa, how come there's not another camera in Africa? How come a jet fighter isn't filming it? And when you show them these CGI things, they're going to deny it. But you planted the seed. So that's after looking at those more and more, there's no way you can deny it.
Totally agree. I couldn't answer any better. We are out of time. Dave, where can people find you and us?
Everything is on the flatearthpodcast.com, all the downloadable artwork. There's all the must-see videos where YouTube won't suggest a Neil deGrasse Tyson video after you just watch something really cool. There's handouts over there. Share. You guys can take all of them, but share them if you're going to use them. If you know how many Bibles are in your church, take enough cards.
This is Jane Lamb with your daily promise from Yah's Word. In 1989, an earthquake registering 8.2 on the Richter scale devastated Armenia. In less than 4 minutes, over 30,000 people lost their lives. Unless you've lived through a similar experience, it's difficult to grasp the sheer magnitude of anguish and suffering. People's worlds are crushed. The lives of any survivors will never again be the same. It is also from such tragedies that stories of true heroism arise. I want to tell you about one hero during that dreadful time. This man was a father. At the time of the earthquake, his son was at school. As soon as the ground quit shaking enough for him to move, he rushed to his son's school. There, where the school had been, was nothing but an immense heap of rubble. I cannot even begin to imagine what must have gone through his mind. Surely shock and horror would have been paramount. Other parents were there, walking around in a daze, calling out their children's names. But this father reacted differently. The pile of rubble only spurred him into action. He rushed to the back corner of the building where his son's classroom had been and began to dig. You've got to ask yourself, why? What real hope did he have? What were the chances that his son had somehow miraculously escaped being killed? What drove this man on was a promise. He had promised his boy he would always be there for him. This was what compelled his hope and gave strength to his body. As he dug, well-meaning bystanders tried to pull him away. "It's too late," they said. "They're all dead. You can't help. Just go home. There's nothing you can do." Even the firemen tried to pull him away, explaining, "There are explosions and fires everywhere. It's too dangerous. Go home." An understanding police officer tried to get him to see reason. He said, "I understand that you're angry, you're upset, but it's over. Go home." But the father had made a promise and he was going to keep it. The love this man had for his son kept him digging for 8 hours, then 12 hours, 16 hours, 24, 36 hours. Then, in the 38th hour, the father pulled back a boulder and heard his son's voice calling for help. "Armand!" he screamed. "Dad, is that you? I told the other kids that if you were still alive, you'd come find us. You promised you'd always be there for me, and you did it, Dad." A resolute father, determined to keep his promise to his beloved son. A stone rolled away to reveal life and freedom. This story always reminds me of events that took place early one morning, nearly 2,000 years ago. Our Heavenly Father rolled away a much more significant stone and kept an even greater promise. When he rolled away that stone from the sepulchre and raised his beloved Son back to life, he brought to everyone who believes eternal life and true freedom in Christ. And the good news is, he's still in the business of rolling away stones. Now, I don't know what stones are in your life. I don't know what's keeping you from the happiness and fulfillment you desire. But I do know the Father is looking for you right now. He's sifting through all the rubble and ruin of lives not lived for him. However big or small the stones and boulders in your life may be, he is willing and capable of rolling them away and giving you new life in him. Yahuwah keeps his promises, just as he kept his promise to his own Son when he rolled away a stone early one morning 2,000 years ago. Acts 13, verses 37 to 38 says, "He whom Yah raised up saw no corruption. Therefore, let it be known to you, brethren, that through this man is preached to you the forgiveness of sins." We've been given great and precious promises. Go and start claiming.
Thank you for listening to this episode on WLC Radio. We're living in very solemn times. The world is hovering on the brink of disaster. Catastrophic events will soon take place that will bring this age to a close and usher in the next. In his great mercy, Yahuwah has revealed through prophecy what the future holds. Revelation 8 foretells a series of events, each one worse than the last, that will devastate the earth. The world's food supplies will be decimated. Famine and its accompanying pestilence will result. The earth's fresh water supplies will also be affected. Revelation 9 reveals that demons will impersonate extraterrestrials. The terror and devastation of this so-called alien invasion will make people desperate for safety at any cost. The freedom to live and worship as the conscience dictates will become a thing of the past. Many lives will be lost during this series of events, and when the mark of the beast is enforced, there will be martyrs. Each event prepares for the next crisis. In one long-last call of mercy to repent, for Yahuwah is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Shortly following the events described in Revelation 8 and 9, the 7 last plagues will be poured out. These plagues and the earlier trumpets will wreak havoc on the earth and cause unprecedented destruction and misery. Isaiah 24 warns, quote, "Behold, Yahuwah maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again." Unquote. For believers, however, there is hope. In describing the end of this age, Yahushua said in Luke 21 verse 28, quote, "When these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." Unquote. Yes, the end will be traumatic. It's meant to be. Yahweh wants to save every individual he can, so he allows this final climax to awaken souls. But the gospel of the kingdom of Yah is that, beyond the traumatic events of the near future, an eternity of bliss awaits all who accept Yah's gift of salvation. When Yahushua returns, all who've died trusting in the merits of the crucified and risen Savior will be raised back to life in the first resurrection. Yahushua will then set up Yah's kingdom on earth. He and the redeemed will reign jointly on the earth for the first 1,000 years of eternity. John saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. If you wish to join with the redeemed of all ages, living a life that measures with the life of Yahweh, make the choice. Accept salvation today. You don't have to get yourself ready. The truth is, you can't. Neither can I. No one can. Come to Him just as you are. Don't wait until you've quit sinning. You're not going to get better through your own efforts. Accept Yahweh's invitation to become a member of His eternal earthly kingdom. When you accept this precious invitation, Yahweh will gift you with a brand new heart. In Ezekiel 36, verse 26, He declares, "I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh." Accepting this priceless gift is the only way for joining His kingdom. Come to Yahweh just as you are. He's waiting with arms wide open, eager to receive all who come to Him.
If you're enjoying WLC Radio, invite your friends to listen in too. If you know someone interested in last day events or you have a Bible study partner, tell them about our website, worldslastchance.com. You have been listening to WLC Radio. Join us again tomorrow for another truth-filled message on WBCQ at 9330 kHz on the 31 meter band. World's Last Chance Radio, preparing a people for the Saviour's soon return.